Alright, hello everybody. Today we are going to take the past tools that we've been learning in Illustrator, including the Perspective Grid tool, and we are going to make a perspective city street. So your final projects are going to look something along the lines of this. Maybe not as detailed as these because there are some steps that we are going to leave out, but the basic ideas will be the same. So for the first step we need to do is make a new document. So go to File, New, and hit OK. And I'm going to increase my artboard size here. And that looks like I can use that size there. So the first thing I'm going to do to get my cityscape going is I'm going to take my Perspective Grid tool and I'm going to stretch it out so it fits my frame here. So I'm going to zoom out just a little bit so I can see the edges of my artboard. And I'm going to click on the solid circle here, and these are my vanishing points for my sides. So I'm going to take these vanishing points out so the very edges of my buildings don't become super small in my picture. So I'm going to go ahead and drag this one out a little bit more. And since I'm going to be using this guide, I'm going to drag the top and bottom of my buildings up a little bit to give me some more room to work with. So I'm going to click on that top diamond and drag that up, and then I'm going to drag my bottom down just a little bit. I'm going to leave some room for a street, so I'm going to leave that right about there. So the first thing I'm going to do in my actual picture is I'm actually going to do the background. To do that, I need to make a shape in the background here. Now if I make a shape, if I take my rectangle tool and I make a shape, I'm going to be doing it on the blue side of my perspective grid, which I don't want to do. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that. One thing that I can do is inside the circle, if you click on any part of the area that says no active grid, it will allow you to create a flat shape, so you won't be going back to any vanishing point. So if I make a flat shape here now, I have my gradient in here, but I don't want the gradient going from left to right. I'm going to have my gradient going up. Sorry, that's making another shape. So to do that, I need to click on my gradient tool, click and hold, and then I can drag my gradient in the direction that I would like to go. Now, way back when we first started doing shapes, I don't know if you remember how to change the color of the gradient, but if you click on your gradient toolbar, double-click on one of the gradient sliders, either your white or your black, and then you click on this drop-down menu right here where it specifies the mode of the color adjustment. So if I click on here, I need to switch it to CMYK, and it gives me my full range of colors. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go from an orange to a yellow. So to change that, I'm going to double-click on the white now, click on my drop-down menu, go to CMYK, and then I'll select a yellow. So now I have a nice gradient sky. To click off of this, and I'm going to make another shape here for my street. So right where I'm located right now in my picture, this is known as the horizon line. The horizon line in a perspective picture is where your ground looks like it meets the sky. So I'm going to make another shape right here, but I don't want it to be another gradient. I'm going to make this a solid black, because this is going to be the color of my street. I actually didn't click on the right spot, so I need to click over here to solid fill, and then I will have my solid black. So this will be my street here. The next thing I'm going to put on my street is a sidewalk. So I'm going to go back to my rectangle tool, and I'm going to make sure that my left grid is selected so I can do the left side of my sidewalk first. I'm using these grid indicators as a blank building that I'm going to build my sidewalk off of. So I'm going to come to the intersection in the middle here, click down, and I'm going to start dragging back to my vanishing point. Now if I go off the page here, my shape will come all the way off, so I don't want to do that. I'm going to end it right at the edge of my artboard. So when I line up there, I'm going to let it go. Now my shape is black, so it kind of fills in with the other one. So I'm going to double click on my color fill, and I'm going to change this to a gray, and then I'll hit OK. So there's my sidewalk on this side of my buildings, where they will be. So I need to switch to my right grid, and then I'll do the same thing on this side, and again end at the end of the artboard so it matches up, and then I'll have my sidewalk on this side. So just to show you what it's looking like so far, I'm going to go ahead and deactivate my Perspective Grid tool by clicking on the X here to hide the grid. So now you can see I have my sky, my horizon line with the street, and my sidewalk. So I'm going to go ahead and bring my Perspective Grid tool back up. So now I can actually start making buildings. So I'm going to go back to my rectangle tool, and right now I'm going to work on my left side. So I'm going to start with the building in the very corner. So I'm going to go up, and I can take this building as high as I want it, drag it out, and when I let it go, I will have this color. Since it's the same side as the sidewalk, I'm going to change it. I'll make this one white, then I'll click OK. So now I need to make the other side, so I'm going to switch to the right side of my building, the right side of my perspective tool, to make the right side of my building. So this side's going back to this vanishing point, the blue side's going back to this vanishing point. So here's my first building. If I want to make another building, and I want to have a little bit of space in between each building to show maybe like an alley, so for the next shape, if I start here, bring it down, let it go, and then I want to make that side going this way, I'm going to change the color here so you can see what I'm talking about more. I'll make this one blue. I need to switch back to my left grid, come back and connect it to this anchor point, and just a little bit so you can see where it's going into an alley. Now, the reason I wanted to show you this is because right now this side of the building is in front of this building, but that doesn't make sense. So I need to bring this part of my first building back in front here. The way I can do that is I need to arrange my shapes. We haven't gone over this yet, so I'm going to show you right now. I can either arrange the shape that I'm currently selected on and move it behind the white shape, or I can select my selection arrow, click on the white one, go to Object, Arrange, and Bring to Front. That'll bring this shape up in front of all the other ones. So anytime I make a new shape and it's not in the right position, I need to arrange that shape by either pushing one backwards or bringing one forward. And again, to do that, you select your shape with your selection tool, go to Object, Arrange, and then Bring to Front, or Send Backward. You can also use the shortcuts which are Control and the bracket keys. One thing I'm going to do right now is increase the stroke points, or the stroke widths on my shapes, because the black lines aren't really showing that much, and I want to be able to see the sides of my buildings. So I'm just going to increase these to 3 each. And I'm going to make a couple more buildings, just one on this side so you can see. So again, I'm using my rectangle tool, and if I want to make a building on this side, dragging it down, bring it all the way over to the end, and now I'm going to click on my right part of the grid, drag it down, bring it back like it's going back down an alley, and I'm going to let it go. Again, this is now in front of that building when it shouldn't be. So if I go to Object, Arrange, Send Backward, it didn't do it all the way behind there because I only pressed it once. So if I hold down Control and my left bracket key, and I keep clicking it, eventually it will go behind that shape. Okay, so I have a couple of buildings on my street here. I would normally fill up all of this space so I wouldn't see any of the black in my horizon here, but just for the sake of moving on in this tutorial, I'm going to skip over that. If I were to make some doors and windows, I would still be doing the same thing. I have my rectangle tool, and I am on my right side of the perspective grid tool, so I'm going to make some doors on these buildings here. So if I click all the way down near where the sidewalk meets my building, and I make a little door, if I let go, I'll just leave that color. I'm going to change my color though for the next one. If I came up here, made another door. If I was doing windows, it would be the same thing. I can make as many windows as I want and fill up the building with some windows. Say I wanted to make a sign up here, I can make it all the way across. I'm going to change the color to something gray. And the reason I made the sign is because I want to show you how to do font in perspective. So to do that, I need to click on my type tool, and I'm going to go ahead and just put General Store because I don't know what to call this building here. My font right now is at 48, yours may be at 12, so you may need to increase the font. So to change this font to make it in perspective going down this side here, what I need to do is actually click and hold on my perspective toolbox, and I'm going to change to Perspective Selection Tool. When I let go on that, if I come over to the General Store font, notice how there's a line right underneath it. If I click on that line and add an anchor, I can then actually move the General Store and put it in perspective. So if I move it over here and I fit it inside my gray box here, it's very small so you can't see it. Let me zoom in so you can see it a little bit better. So now you can see that the actual wording is in perspective. Now it didn't fit quite into the box, so what I'm going to do is grab my selection tool, and then I can move it over Just going to go ahead and hit OK here. And I can also resize it, maybe make it a little bit bigger, drag it down that way, click and move it over. So now my store sign is in perspective. Zoom back out. So what happened was it got a little distorted putting it in there, but it still gives you the general idea of how to get it down. So for this assignment, you are going to make a street corner in 2-point perspective using the Perspective Grid tool. And you're going to have 5 buildings. You're going to have doors and windows on each building. We're not going to have any just blank buildings here. Everything will have color. Not all your buildings will be the exact same colors. You can set up the gradient in the sky like I did. You can also set up the black for your street level. When you get into details like the signs on stores, you don't have to just use your box rectangle tool. You can branch out and do different types of tools too. If you want to do your star tool, and let's put this one on the left so you can see it. If I make a star here, and again, if you hold down Control and use the arrow keys, you can change how many points you have on the star. I can move this over. Your signs and details don't all have to just be rectangle tools, so I can make this whatever color I want, just so you can see it differently. Put it as pink. This is where, in my examples, people started tracing and cutting out Apple logos or Nike logos and making their own shapes. You can make yours as detailed as you wanted to, but if you were to make a Nike logo, you would have to do that with your pen tool, or you would have to actually trace a Nike logo and then move it down. So if I wanted to make a Nike logo with my pen tool on top of this store here, and I'm drawing out, clicking and holding and dragging, click over to get the swoosh there, and then when I come back here to close off my shape, I'm going to click and hold, and then drag that up there. So I have my Nike logo here kind of in perspective on this building. So using your pen tool to kind of draw off of the grid can help you to draw shapes to make different logos and stuff for your stores. So this can be as detailed as you wanted to when you're getting into things like that, but I will make a list of requirements on Google Classroom for this assignment. 5 buildings, doors and windows, and signs on a couple. This assignment will most likely take you more than one class. So say I got to this point and I wasn't quite done. Instead of exporting my image to save it as a JPEG and then submit it to Google Classroom, if you still need to work on it next class, then you should be saving your document. So if I go to Save As, I'm going to make sure it's an Adobe Illustrator file, and I'm going to call this Cityscape, and it's in my Perspective Grid tool folder. So if I save this, I can then work on this document next class. Go ahead and click OK. So if I close down Illustrator, and then I go back to open it up, if I go to File, Open, I can open up my Cityscape, and then I can continue building off of this no problem. If you export it as a JPEG, you will not be able to do that. So you need to make sure you're saving things as an Illustrator file if you need to continue to work on it next class. Once you are finished with the entire assignment, then you export it, save it as a JPEG, and submit it on Google Classroom under this assignment.